So really, I just want to say a few remarks in terms of closing what's been a fantastic 5-year project for us, and just pointing out some of the achievements of the project and the team that we've had, at least from my perspective, as feedback to the funders and as feedback to the steering board as well at this point, and for recognition actually of the team we've had. So this is a slide I put up last night, which is my summary, which I put together on Sunday afternoon, last weekend. And actually, I thought I was going to struggle to find things, to showcase the project. But actually, there's so much that's come out of the project. And I think you've seen that today with all the researchers talking about all the bits of the work. It's absolutely fantastic. So to me, the biggest output from the project is people. It's the people doing the research, the experts that have been trained, the experts we've had on the project. I mean, a fantastic team of researchers, postdoctoral researchers on the project. And I think one thing I would say about this as a project is actually the freedom we've had with the program grants, and this is a direct feedback to you, Joe, has been absolutely fantastic. And it's the first time I've had experience of a project like this where you're told up front not to have a plan. Very scary from the point of view of running a project. But actually, what we found as a management team was actually we had a brilliant set of researchers on the project who could drive ideas. And we found a way of essentially putting the researchers in the driving seat for a lot of what you've seen today and a lot of the outputs from the project. And that's been very rewarding as someone who's been involved in this, but also I think a fantastic thing for the UK to be funding this kind of model. So that's reflected in the people that have come out, and already researchers have gone on to academic posts, lectureships, things like that, to posts in industry, and I think we'll see a lot more of that. We're fortunate as a project, in fact, that the majority of the researchers that were there at the beginning of the project are still with us at the end of the project. I think we've just, over the last couple of months, we've started to see a drop-off. There's been a few people who've moved. John moved across to the BBC, for instance. Phil Coleman, who's spoken a couple of times today, moved to a lectureship post, things like that. But actually, that core team that started out is still with us, and that's, I think, rare for a 5-year project. I think the publications speak for themselves. There's a huge amount of research output and the influence of that, and I think the international reach of that in terms of visibility of S3A has been quite incredible. And the focus on the UK in terms of the spatial audio work that's going on within the project is really pushed that up to the next level I think we've seen through international meetings. Some of the things that have been talked about today, one of the things we felt right from the beginning, and this is partly through the discussions with the BBC, was the barriers to doing work on object-based audio. And there's a couple of barriers there. One was the content, and very early on we were steered in the direction of producing high-quality content, and I think through things like the Turning Forest we've seen the benefit of that, actually far beyond our expectation in terms of benefit and reach for that kind of thing, because there wasn't anything there for that. And it's not that we've solved all those problems around content, but the content is quite different from what you have conventionally. So it was really important to put some high quality content there and to put it in the hands of sound designers to produce high quality experiences. Oh, my apologies. And then the second part of that is really the tools. And I think the first year of the project, it was mentioned, the Iosono DAW that we were working with commercial infrastructure where it's actually very difficult to get permissions to use it. To give content. One of the things we realized was, well, we could generate all this content, we could put it out there. No one will have any tools to use it because they're all proprietary tools. And so we've had to jump through a series of hoops to get to the stage where actually we've managed to release something that people can use. And it's, I think, the first open source set of production tools with examples of how to use things, using the Reaper DAW, which comes from the games industry, or is used by the games industry, I think, but is open for use. And that we felt, in terms of really wanting to get things that creatives could use beyond the project, and in the project, has been an important step for us. So that's really one of the things we wanted to achieve, and I think we have. We've obviously created some experiences, and those have been talked about. Actually, the narrative importance experience with the casualty content should be on that list as well, I think. And there again, working with sound designers, working with the BBC to inform the production of those things has been incredibly important. And I would emphasise that as a project, we are 3 universities funded by EPSRC, but the BBC have been all along the 4th partner, very much integrated with the project. And that, in my experience, is also quite rare. And it's, to have such a content producer with such a reach is actually an incredible opportunity for the UK. We were talking about this morning as a management board. Actually, not many countries would be able to do that in terms of access to a national broadcaster and the kind of things that the BBC does. So it's quite unique as well. Technical impact, you've seen some of those things. I remember saying when we were interviewed, one of the outputs from this project is going to be a soundbar technology that gives you virtual headphones. Well, amazingly enough, one of the outputs is something that's being commercialized along those lines, and that's also a great achievement for the project. And we certainly wish that every success into the future, and we tried to support that through the project as an important output. There's other elements of IP. I think 3 researchers on the project have done iCure training through Set Squared for commercialization. And we've also got some follow-on projects in terms of Innovate UK, Audience of the Future funding, things around that. And there's lots of opportunities for where we can go next with some of the things. I'll speak a bit more about that. One of the things I couldn't quite believe when I pulled this together was the number of public-facing or industry-facing events that we've been involved with, and actually research community-facing as well. So I think at least 25 events with an international reach. So one of our objectives when we set out actually was to create an audio-visual signal processing community. And that's something that doesn't exist. They're 2 different communities that talk to themselves and don't necessarily cross over. One of the things we've done through the project is to drive the start of that community where actually these things are seen as complementary and we should look at them together. So something I'm quite proud of, and in pushing that, and lots of other reach into communities like the VR community, public forums like the British Science Festival. Actually, about a year ago, with the BBC, we were involved with the Sounds Amazing event, which was very much focused on the production community around this. So lots of engagement externally to get information out about the project and the potential of the project. And some of that has resulted, I should have switched my Wi-Fi off, resulted in awards. All sorts of things. Chris talked about some of the awards for the production thing. I guess point out Lauren Ward, who's done the work on narrative importance, has actually had an incredible impact through that, and there's lots of potential to follow on from that. So she won the EPSRC Pioneers Award, for instance, which is all about engagement with the things you're doing, and also awards through the IET. So lots of fantastic output. So I think, that's a kind of list of things. I think if I had one message to go back to the funders and actually everyone, why is S3A important? In the scale of things, why is it important on the future? Well, if you think about it, the things we've done in the project really come back to creating experiences that adapt to the listener, and the future technologies. And this is one of I was trying to think of another example that does that. I think it's maybe the first example where you're demonstrating in the audio context that you can adapt content through machine perception to the listener and their environment. And my judgment would be that over the next decade, now that AI and machine perception technology is becoming a commercial reality and something that works, which wasn't there 5 years ago, that's really going to drive media experiences where they're using machine perception, and a lot of content, audio-visual content around this, audio content, other experiences, where machines are able to understand people and adapt to people in various different ways. So that's in the entertainment context. Of course, it goes beyond that into healthcare and things like that, where machine perception is also going to be used. But I think, actually S3A, if you think about it, is actually quite an important seed in terms of the international community driving those things forward. So I think that's the kind of big picture of S3A output, as well as all the individual outputs that are here. So that's why it's important for the UK to be at the forefront of that. So I wanted just to kind of finish up, really, by saying a bit of where some of these things are going more immediately. I think we've seen, so for instance, the automotive work, which has been done over the last 6 months, really, with discussions feeding into that, is really very much something that might drive forward some of the next stages of projects. For my own interest, and something that's also been talked about a lot in S3A, is where's the visual component of what you're interacting with. So in S3A, it's very much an audio project in the sense of the content. Yeah? And when we've talked about audio-visual things, so watching TV or whatever, we felt that that was too difficult and too challenging. It brought in too many other questions to be able to tackle within S3A. But definitely, there's a whole world out there of audio-visual content, and we need to understand some of these things about the viewer, the participant perception in these, and how that informs the content. Interestingly, in parallel with S3A, there's a whole industry around VR that's sprung up, and huge investments in that. And a lot of that is informed by technology rather than the experience. And a lot of that is driven by actually the visual industry. The gaming industry is one of the key drivers behind that and the success of that. But there's a lot of potential beyond that. And what we need to do is understand that in the same way as we have with S3A, and see where these things, this ability to understand data, to understand the listener or the participant, will come into that. Because that's going to seed a whole new generation of entertainment experiences and things beyond that, training experiences as well, certainly. So I think there's a great potential for things to follow on from this in that direction, and that's certainly one of the things we'll be exploring. And there's lots of other ideas that have come out. Certainly we have some initial projects in these directions as well. So finally, just to recognize that this has all happened because of this fantastic team of people. I've had the pleasure to kind of sit in the middle and observe this as a non-audio person. I still feel my heart is in computer vision, but I now see that this very strong link between the two, and we've actually, as a 5-year project, we've had a fantastic experience along the way, and something I will certainly miss in terms of a team of people. So I'd like to thank everyone here, and with that, I guess I can formally close this session. So I think, first of all, a round of applause for everyone.